Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be doing another addition to my series where I wrap up all the books that I've read from January through June. This video specifically will probably be mostly us dragging Goodreads. Just kidding, I'm not coming for Goodreads' neck, but I will say while looking at the books that I'm going to talk about for today's video, I definitely did think about the usefulness of Goodreads and just how much we actually need a half-star rating, because I noticed that a lot of the books that I gave 4 stars, when I went over them, I definitely feel like I didn't even know what the difference between my 4 stars and my 5 stars were. That's also me personally, because sometimes I'll literally think so hard on whether or not I want to give a book 4 stars or 5 stars, and it's just so difficult. And I'm like, should I even rate books if I'm having trouble picking between 4 and 5 stars? Then when you do 4.5 stars, you're like, okay, is it going to be a 5? Is it going to be a 4? And you're just like freaking out. But if we're being honest, it's kind of our only source, our only way to rate books and see what other people are reading as well, unless you think about apps like the Book Slot. I've been using this app and I really love it. This video is not sponsored or anything like that. I just really love this app and I want to see more people on it. I'm definitely not going to be abandoning Goodreads because, like I said, it's definitely all-encompassing and it's a really good app for wanting to look up lists and things that people have made. But if you do want to try out something cool, something really aesthetic, something brand new and fresh, definitely check out the Book Slot. Speaking of cool and fresh, shout out to FAECRATE for sending me this wonderful free box that I'm going to be showing you guys in this video. I really love that it says Caution Magic inside, and when you open it, it's wrapped in this black wrapping paper and it has the really cute FAECRATE logo. So the first thing in the box was a graphic card of Red Rising's Darrow as Zeus, and I'm showing you guys that right here. A Sorcery of Thorns t-shirt that says "You belong in the library as much as any book." Then we have a lunchbox from the Midnight Live, a Grace antler necklace, an enamel pin that says "I'm extra and proud," a Calazin stamp pin, an Aragon pin banner that you can hang up or put up however you want. We also have a Polaroid from Throne of Glass, a graphic card that says "It's easier to stand together than it is to struggle apart," a Catmere Academy patch, a spoiler card, and then finally we have the book, which is a super cool edition because the actual cover itself, when you open it, it has some really cool graphics on the inside, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys all of that. So I didn't really know much about this book until receiving it, but it follows our main character, Nick Bell, who is satisfied with writing fan fiction stories about superheroes in his city until he meets his biggest superhero crush, and then he decides that he wants to become a superhero, and he wants to be extraordinary, which is, the title. But yeah, that's basically the premise of the book. Once I read it, I will definitely know more, but I'm really excited because, as you guys can see, it's an absolutely beautiful cover. So if you guys do decide that you want this book and all of the other items in this box, make sure you use my code that I will have on the side and down below as well, so you can get 5% off of a box order, so you can get yourself a really cute book in a wonderful FAECRATE edition. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about my 4-star ratings for the first half of the year. I don't know if you guys already picked up on that, but that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. So the first book I have on this list is To All the Boys I've Loved Before, which is a book that follows our main character, Lara Jean Song-Covey, who writes out these letters to pour out her emotions to her crushes as a way to kind of get over them and to just scream on a piece of paper.
My letters are my most secret possessions. I write them when I have a crush so intense, I don't know what else to do.
These letters are kind of like a diary to Lara Jean, and she writes them, writes the address and everything, but she never mails them out until one day all of her love letters get mailed and Lara Jean has to deal with the repercussions of that. And one of the people who receives a letter from her is Peter Kavinsky, who happens to be the most popular guy at her school.
I appreciate it, but it's never gonna happen.
I'm sorry, what?
I really loved this book. I loved Lara Jean's character. I do think because it is like a YA contemporary, a lot of people might feel like, oh, Lara Jean is super childish and blah, blah, blah. But I really enjoyed this book, and I really liked, this is a really random thing, but I really liked the baking recipes at the back of the book. I don't know how to bake, so I really appreciated that because Lara Jean bakes a lot throughout the book, and it kind of puts you in a baking slash cooking mood. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the book as well. I personally thought that Lara Jean's character was really well done. She was quirky, she was funny, she wasn't too much of a try-hard character. She was just someone who is very easy to like.
And Peter Kavinsky.
Let's talk about Peter Kavinsky. I'm not the biggest fan of Peter, but I do think, because I watched the movie before reading the book, and how that impacted me was I definitely thought Peter's character was better in the book, as we usually assume, but I thought he was very sassy, he was very snarky, but in a good and funny way, as opposed to in the movies, which I didn't really enjoy that much. Like, I loved the movie, but I didn't really like Peter's character that much. So definitely reading the book that way, like after the movie, helped me like him a lot more, and I feel like it generally helped me like the book a lot more, even though the actress who plays Lara Jean is just chef's kiss, so good. But yeah, I'm not even talking about the movie, I'm talking about the book. But I just wanted to add that little tidbit in there. If you're someone who has watched the movie and you're kind of like, I don't want to read the book because it's not going to give me anything extra, it definitely will. Peter's character is so much better in the book. So yeah, just read the book. Okay, moving on to the next book. The next book that we're going to talk about is Frankly in Love, which follows our main character, Frank, who likes a girl who is not Korean. And so, because his parents want him to date a Korean girl and be with a Korean girl, he kind of makes this pact with one of his friends who is also dating someone who isn't Korean, and they get into this fake dating mess, which is basically the entire premise of the whole story. I really liked this book. I liked the discussion that our author David Yoon brought up about racism, about tokenism, about friendships with Black people and friendships between Black and Asian people. I really liked the discussion that happened in this book, but I ended up giving it 4 stars because even though I felt like this book was near perfect in my opinion, I didn't like how there were certain tropes in the book that I won't give away, but if you've read the book, you know. I didn't like how that trope kind of played into the end of the story, and a certain character, I feel like how they were affected from this whole thing wasn't really explained very well. But besides that, I honestly think this is probably one of my favorite contemporaries of the year. I don't know. I want to gush about this book so much because I just really enjoyed it, and it's definitely something I would reread quite a few times, but yeah. So the next book I have on this list is The Field Guide to the North American Teenager, which follows our main character who moves from Canada to the United States, and he kind of has to adjust to life here. And even though he is used to being, you know, in Quebec and used to being around people that he's familiar with, he has to figure out the Texan way. And from what I remember, because I think I read this very early in the year, our main character was very hilarious. Like, that played into such a high rating for this book. He was very funny. His interactions with all the characters were very like entertaining, and I really loved the friendships and the romances in this book because I thought that it really captured what it's like to be a teenager in high school. You know, you have your friends, they have their drama, and you're trying to figure out, okay, where do I fit in all of this? And it is also really nice to see a character moving from Canada to the United States because I feel like not a lot of stories focus on that. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the book as well. But I can't really put my finger on much else except that I thought it was just a really funny and cute and very entertaining book. I read it on audio, so I was definitely here for all the sassy remarks and comments from our main character because they were definitely sassy. The amount of times I've used the word entertaining for this book.
Yeah.
The next book that I have on here is Absolute Boyfriend, which is a manga series that follows our main character who has never had a boyfriend, and she comes upon this mysterious cell phone and a weird salesman who offers her the perfect boyfriend, essentially. And so she puts in an order for the perfect boyfriend thinking it's fake, it's not gonna happen, and lo and behold, the awesome perfect boyfriend shows up at her door, and she basically has to deal with keeping the secret of where this guy came from her friends, from her best friend, from her school classmates, and it's a mess. It honestly is a mess. But I really love this manga. I think I've read like maybe the first 3 volumes. I can't fully remember right now. And there's also a K-drama version of this manga, and you know I will be watching that. So I need to finish the series so I can watch a K-drama, but all in all, I really enjoyed it. It's very funny. There are some aspects of the manga that are definitely questionable, the way that genre of manga gets, but it is definitely a really cute series. So next is The Angel Experiment, which is the first book in the Maximum Ride series. I read this because I wanted to feel nostalgic. This was actually for a video that I was going to do where I read books from the past or books that made me feel kind of nostalgic, and I haven't read anything Maximum Ride since I was maybe like 11 or 12, so I was like, let me start with this. And it actually was a good start. I really enjoyed Maximum Ride because I thought the characters, Max and Fang, and everybody else that I literally cannot remember now because I read this like maybe February or March, but all the characters were very, very cute. I was like, oh my gosh, these are like little siblings having their fun. I didn't remember how young everyone was because when I read it, I was like the same age or younger than everyone. So when I was reading it, I was like, these are literally little children. Sometimes you go back and you read books from your past and you're just like, oh my god, this is problematic, or this is what? Like what? How did I really enjoy this? What is going on here? But I didn't really get that from Maximum Ride. I genuinely thought that this was definitely a very good reread and I had a fun time. That's all I can say. I had a fun time. Will I be reading the rest of the series? Probably not. But I did get that nostalgic feeling that I wanted, and that's enough for me. So the next book on this list is Little Fires Everywhere, which follows a mother and her young daughter who move to this town called Shaker Heights in the midst of a custody case battle going on between one of the affluent families in this town and a Chinese immigrant woman who is trying to fight for the rights to have her child back. I really enjoyed this book because I thought it did a really good job on discussing racism, on discussing picture perfect societies, and because I watched the TV show immediately after reading the book, I can only picture Mia and her daughter as specific people, because in the book when you're reading it they are very racially ambiguous, but it's very clear that they come from a background that is very much looked down upon in society. So I think that's why they were casted the way they were casted for the TV show if you've watched it, because a lot of the things from the book will make sense. But I really loved this book. I thought it was just so well done. But I will say that the reason it didn't get a 5 stars from me was because I felt like some parts of the ending were just not that wrapped up, because I did definitely expect a lot more from the ending of this book. But I'll say that the entire time you're reading the book, your heart is going to be pumping. You're going to be very confused about what side you are on, because it's definitely something that questions morality and society and a lot of things. You'll be questioning your beliefs a lot, and I really liked that about this book. So I definitely think I'm going to be reading more from this author. I don't want to say too much because I feel like it's going to be spoilers if I say anything more, but I will say the main family in this family, the Richardsons, are an interesting bunch. Celeste Ng definitely did a good job capturing this family and capturing the subtlety of their racism and the subtlety of how they viewed people that they think are less than. So I think that's just wow. If you read this book or if you've read this book, please also watch the TV show, because Reese Witherspoon acted this part way too well. So she scares me. But shout out to that queen, because she acted it too well. I hated her so much. But that's besides the point. Let's move on to the next book. The next book is 8 Perfect Murders, which is a thriller novel that follows a man who is a... what's the one I want to use? He's a blogger, essentially, and he also owns a bookstore. But a murder happens, and he starts digging into his 8 Perfect Murders article, and he tries to figure out what the murder was, and etc, etc. I really liked this because I had, up until this point, not read anything like it, and I still don't think I have. But I will say that if you're going to read this book, be careful about spoilers, because the 8 Perfect Murders that the book focuses on are from different mysteries. So the book is going to give you a lot of spoilers on very popular mystery books that have come out. So if you have not read a lot of mystery books, like for example, The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie, that book gave me all the spoilers for the ABC Murders. So when I went back and read the ABC Murders last month, it was not as exciting as it could have been. So definitely make sure you look up what the 7 or 8 books, I don't know if it was 7 or 8 books, because I think the 8th murder is the one that the book is centered around, but just make sure you kind of look up what books are in that book, if you get what I'm saying, because you definitely don't want to be spoiled for a mystery slash thriller, because there's nothing worse than that. The twist in this book definitely shook me up. I was like, Jinkies, what? But then when I was like talking to other friends who have read the book, they were just kind of like, it's okay. okay. But maybe that's just because I've read so many bad thrillers, as you guys have seen, because I literally just randomly picked them up on Hoopla or Libby. So maybe it's because I had so many bad experiences that I was shook up. All in all, I thought it was a really good mystery novel. I really enjoyed my time reading. I listened to it on audiobook, which is what I typically do, because I don't see the point for me owning mystery books or thriller books, because I won't end up rereading them, because once that twist is done and gone, that's it for me. Speaking of thrillers, the next book that I'm going to talk about is Lock Every Door, which follows our main character who is struggling financially, and so she decides to take a job where she is apartment sitting a luxurious apartment in an infamous building. This book was just wow.
I don't even have any words
for what I want to say, because this book was a roller coaster. The thing that I have heard and noticed with this author's works is that when you're reading it, you feel like you're reading something paranormal for the entire time you're reading it. But then there's this giant twist that happens that suddenly makes everything make sense, and you're just sitting there like shook, and you're like, why did I think this was literally going to be a paranormal book? But then it's not, but then you're like, but everything still makes sense. So yeah, I was definitely very shaken up when I read this book, because this is 100% something that could really happen in real life. I will say it would have received a perfect 5 stars to me if I had not already guessed immediately. Like, once it was obvious that it wasn't a paranormal book, the person who was doing all the crimes and committing all the murders and whatever was very, very obvious to me. And so I just felt like it wasn't a 5-star read, because at the point when it was like, oh, these things are actually real, I was like, oh, okay, I know who it is. And then when I was like, I know who it is, it ended up exactly being that person, but it was definitely not for the reason that I thought. And so I still thought this book was absolutely amazing. But yeah, I am really excited to continue reading this author's works, because they are super, super popular, and I have heard things about their work, so we'll see how it goes for me. But I really enjoyed this one, and I definitely think if you like paranormal vibes or something that's going to give you a massive twist, then you should check out this book, because this is the only book I can vouch for. So maybe check out this book, but maybe check out their other works as well. But yeah, the next book I'm going to talk about is Clap When You Land. Oh, if you guys do not know, Elizabeth Acevedo is one of my favorite authors ever. I have read all of her books, and they've all been 4 and 5-star reads, because chef's kiss, she is a legend. Okay, Clap When You Land follows 2 sisters, one in the Dominican Republic and the other one in New York City, who are brought together by the death of their father when he was on his way to the Dominican Republic. This book is so heart-wrenching and so difficult in certain points. If you are somebody who has a close relationship with your father, or even a difficult relationship with your father in certain ways, you are definitely going to be sobbing your eyes out while reading this book, because the entire time I was reading it, I was just so overwhelmed and overcome with emotions, because there's just a way that Elizabeth Acevedo writes, especially because this is a novel in verse, which 2 of her books are. But because of that, you just are fed, literally fed with so much emotion and so much pain and so much grief. I felt like the entire time I was reading this, Elizabeth just went whoop at my heart and tossed it across the ocean, and I was like, Elizabeth, please let me breathe. And she was like, no honey, you're not gonna get a chance to breathe at all. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just read this and cry, which is exactly what I did. I thought about this book for so long after reading it, and the fact that I read half of it while I was on a plane is a choice, but it was a good choice because I really, really loved it. My only critique with this book is I wish it had done a lot more with the ending, because the ending just didn't give me what I wanted. I wanted to see where the sisters would go beyond meeting in the DR and beyond figuring out what their lives were going to look like. I wanted to see what that would be like, maybe just for a few more months. I wanted to see what their family would look like now that all of this is happening, and now that they are having to figure out
how to build a relationship between the children.
I just wish we had got more, but regardless, I was fed well, and Elizabeth Acevedo will probably never disappoint me. I don't want to say never, but she probably will never disappoint me. We'll see. But yes, if you have not read Clap When You Land, or if you have not read any of Elizabeth Acevedo's works, this is your sign to do that. Please give her the clout she deserves. So the next book is On the Fence, which is a book that follows our main character who is dealing with a lot of family issues, and she and her best friend who live next door to each other kind of meet at a fence that separates the 2 of them, and every night they share secrets and emotions and feelings. Like, how do I talk about this author? Casey West is one of my favorite authors ever, and I absolutely adore her YA contemporary books because they are so easy to read, they are so engaging, and she has very, very likable main characters. I feel like every time I read a Casey West book, I automatically want to keep reading more books. She definitely is a perfect author for if you are in a reading slump. Literally just pick up an audiobook. I highly recommend Listen to Your Heart. I also recommend P.S. I Still Like You, P.S. I Like You. It's one of those titles. I have the picture up here, and I also recommend On the Fence. Those three are really good ones to start out with. I just absolutely adore her writing, and I can't say anything bad about what she writes except that we need more diversity. Just a little crumble of diversity, just give us a little bit, because you know there's a lot of Connors in these books, and just give us a little bit of a taste of diversity. But aside from that, I really love this book. I think this might have been the very last one I read before I read all her books. No, just kidding, there's a different one that I read. But yeah, aside from her needing more diversity in her books, honestly, flawless. The next book I have is Parental Guidance, which is the first book in the Ice Knight series, which is a series that follows these hockey players and their romances. So if you love hockey and you love romance, I highly recommend this one. It follows our main characters who get into a fake dating situation. I really loved this book because the main love interest was just very funny and weird. He was like kind of awkward, but not. I don't know. I really loved this one and didn't like the second one. So maybe because I didn't like the second one, I love this one way more than I originally would have if I hadn't hated the second one, if that makes any sense to you at all. But I barely remember this except the fake dating aspect and the fact that our main character's mom was absolutely hilarious, and the main girl in the story was also very well characterized, very well done. I really enjoyed her character. So yeah, 4 stars. The next book on my list is The Housekeeper, which is a thriller novel that follows this woman who has kind of fallen off the bench since finishing high school, and she sees one of her ex-high school classmates and decides that she is going to become a housekeeper in order to take over her classmate's husband. That's all I can remember from the book. I think I really didn't enjoy it too much when I was reading it for the first like 20%, but as we got closer and we got to the plot twist, honey, I was like, oh my god, what? Like the plot twist was really something. Like the whole time you think that our main character is, you know, like imagining things, or she's overdoing it, or you think she's overreacting because you're like, no, it can't really be that her classmate is evil and doing all these things to her. Her classmate can't really be this wild, what? But then when the plot twist happens, you're like, I didn't even see that coming. And I really didn't even see that coming. And I didn't think I would like this book at all. It was another random hoopla pickup, especially I think I read it after having a bad experience. I was just kind of like, all right, we'll just read it. But it was really good, and I really loved the whole plot twist part from what I remember. You know, sometimes you read a book and you're like, 4 stars, 5 stars. And then you go back and you think about it and you're like, was that a good book? I didn't really do that with this. Yeah, so do with that what you will. But I did really, really love the plot twist in this book, and so I felt like it deserved a 4 stars. So I had to stop for a moment, but we're back. We're back in action. They can't stop us. Who does Apple think they are? I don't know who they think they are. Okay, let's start talking before I run out of space again. Okay. Anyways, the next book that I had on this list was Don't Read the Comments, which is a book that follows 2 main characters who are super into gaming, and they basically connect on the main character's main gaming platform. Our main character is a popular YouTube gamer, and she is trying to figure out how to maintain her anonymity as well as keep her mother safe and herself safe while dealing with hate comments from guys on the internet. I thought this book was so good because I have a lot of friends who game or who do Twitch and all of that, and they are constantly talking about how people view them as women in the gaming space. And I thought that this book really sounded almost exactly like the complaints that my friends always have. And I really liked the friendship and the romance that formed between our main character and her love interest. I really loved the family dynamics. I really loved the friendship dynamics. I just thought the book was very, very interesting. And our main character was extremely likable. Like honestly, her character was just so good. And even not as someone who does gaming or anything like that, but if you are somebody who is a YouTuber, a blogger, just anyone that does anything on the internet or makes any sort of creative content online, you will probably really enjoy this because you're going to understand a lot of the things that Div complains about and you're going to relate a lot. So I definitely recommend that to anybody who is like that. And the final book on my list is Binti, which is a book that follows our main character, Binti, who is the first of her tribe to be admitted into this prestigious college. I loved this book because it is very Afrocentric. It is very science fiction. I really loved our main character and the use of the clay. I think there was some sort of orange clay that was part of Binti's tribe. And I just really adored the commentary on racism and the commentary on how Black people are viewed in society. I thought the book did really well in making it kind of relevant to our world and also relevant to the world in the book. It's a novella, so it's really short, and I felt like I didn't get that much out of the story, but I do want to read more of the series because I think there's like 3 books. So I want to read more of it because I really enjoyed it. But yes, that is the final book on my list. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'm going to try and talk fast before my phone runs out of storage again. But thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you watch the entire video throughout, make sure you leave a flower emoji, any kind of flower emoji. Thanks for watching. Bye.